This is Hypixel's graveyard. And while at first it may not look like it, I can assure you that this is a place where games come to die. Many of these games have player counts under 100 and can oftentimes have no players at all. But why do these games die? Why are Hypixel players not coming back to the arcade? What's the reason behind the arcade having the most amount of game modes but least amount of players? I decided to do a deep dive on Hypixel's unknown graveyard to answer these questions. I wanted to see if perhaps these games truly lack the quality that Minecraft players want. I wanted to explore if the arcade would serve as an example for the future of brand new games that have been released or are still in beta. As the number of players on Hypixel dropped significantly due to the quarantine being over, the arcade has become a barren graveyard. Taking a look at these games, we can see that there's no rhyme or reason why they were put here, as the game genres differ greatly, and many of these seem like throwaways or forgotten ideas, left to rot away. While the history behind these games is unfortunately quite bleak, I think there's something special, a sense of undying potential. There are 17 minigames in total, ranging from sports themes to PvP minigames. But regardless of game type and genre, the player count stays stagnant or have been steadily decreasing. Based on this data, I want to see when the games were released and what the mechanics were to decipher the reason for the arcade's decline. Starting from the left, we have Creeper Attack. This game mode was released 8 years ago in early 2014. While fun, the gameplay suffers from a lack of maps, different mobs, and no new twists to the gameplay. Next, we have Hole in the Wall, which is 6 years old, being released in late 2015. While being a pretty simple game, it's still fun to play with friends. However, no new game mechanics have been added. Farm Hunt is a game mode where players hide as animals around a map. While being super intuitive and nerve-wracking, it's also 6 years old, and once again we find a lack of maps and updates. I immediately started to see a pattern. I found a common theme of lack of new content for all of the arcade games, with a lot of them being a lot older than I expected. While it was a fun experience the first few times around, after a while the gameplay felt lacking. But what if this changed? Imagine getting new maps every week, new updates to the game modes, and different variations of the games we all know and love. For example, Capture the Wool has been one of my favorite game modes to play in the arcade, but rotating through the same 4 maps gets to feel really repetitive. If a new map rotation was introduced, it will help keep the gameplay fresh and exciting. Games like Farm Hunt could especially benefit where all the good hiding spots have already been found on the current map. Even game modes like Football could have cooler maps, kind of like how Rocket League does it, and through increasing the visual aesthetics, it can make the game feel so much more fun and appealing. But unfortunately, Hypixel doesn't prioritize existing game development. Football was released on Hypixel in 2016. There have been no major updates since its release. Party games were introduced in 2015. Unlike the rest of the games in the arcade, there have been updates to the minigames. However, in the past 7 years, only 4 real major changes have occurred. Bounty Hunter was released in 2014 along with the arcade. The lack of maps and new mechanics has led to the demise of this game. If new maps and kits were added, there would be so many more creative ways to play. I've now already mentioned over half the games in the arcade, and they all run into the same problem. It's disheartening knowing that most of these games will just never receive any updates and are just left in the dust, never to be worked on again. But I don't feel that all hope is lost. If Hypixel set up a way for players to send in their own design maps for these minigames, there would be a lot less pressure on the developers to produce content for all of these games. While the system isn't perfect, it holds some potential, as Minecraft is so community-centered. Clients, mods, and servers are all created by the community, so it wouldn't be too far-fetched for Hypixel to hold map contests and choose creative ideas to represent the community. They could even maybe give some prize money and a cool rank. If they wanted to go even further, they could have community members help balance the game modes by adding new items or mechanics. Though this would be hard to implement, getting direct feedback and suggestions from the player base is the best way to keep these games alive. And if Hypixel wanted to go even beyond that, they can allow for player-made minigames to be created and accessible. This model already works extremely well on platforms like Roblox, so there's definitely a market for it. Plus, we can already see that Hypixel players create their own cool parkour maps in the housing section. So it really wouldn't be too crazy that Hypixel could implement a section where players can submit their own minigames and play other players as well. Made for players, by players. This would also help with the lack of new games on the server. Imagine a server where you can test out your friends' minigames and rank which ones are the best. However, this is just a dream, as Hypixel is extremely unlikely to work on adding these features. Instead, the effort is put towards games like Bed Wars, with high player counts, or Skyblock, Hypixel's main moneymaker. The sad reality is that these games are sent here to die. I wanted to get the perspective of Hypixel's player base, so I decided to go into a game with 0 players. The eerie feeling fills the lobby, as the usual hustle and bustle of Hypixel is completely gone. Even as the timer continued to count down, no other players were to be seen. If this was my favorite game, then there wouldn't be many chances to play it, as most Hypixel veterans have gotten bored of it years ago. This means that for these games, there won't be any players who have been on the platform for a while, and there won't be any new players, as most of them will just go into the lobby only to leave immediately when they see no one else join. Luckily for me, players started to join in, so I had the opportunity to interview them. As I had expected, even the players who decided to play this dead game had the same sentiments as me, as they thought the lack of new games and content were killing the arcade. It was one of the few times I was able to get the authentic feelings of Minecraft players who are willing to play games even when they aren't popular. What truly concerns me is the fate of new games that have a lot of hype around them. There are many fun games out in the prototype lobby, but knowing that many of these will just end up in the arcade, never to be updated again, destroys any excitement for the release. At this rate, the arcade will become the resting place of games that have come to die. It's up to us to rid ourselves of the monotony of our lives and bring forth an adventurous spirit, looking forward to create new memories, meet new people, and make new friends. The arcade has been the one place on Hypixel where I can truly get to know the people on my friends list. It's been a place to just have pure, unadulterated fun, not having to worry about losing a win streak or ranking. It's a place where I've made the best memories on the server, and to think that I can't continue to have these amazing experiences makes me genuinely sad. Though Hypixel may not care about the arcade, it holds a special place in my heart, a place where I can't help but come back to. And despite the games not receiving the care that they need with the lack of updates, they're still extremely fun to play. I believe that the untapped potential of the Hypixel Arcade can be blossomed into something special, even without the support of the server. And I truly mean this because at the end of the day, community is what matters. The arcade doesn't have to be a graveyard. So I hope that one day both players and developers can work together to make it a more fun and memorable experience. But until next time, I'll catch you over in the Hypixel Arcade.